Polk County Sheriff Brent Waak is joining us in studio today for a chat. For my father and co-host Terry Dryden, I'm Ben Dryden, and you're listening to a DrydenWire.com podcast. Quick programming note, next week we will welcome Sawyer County Judge John Yackel back to our studio for an extended conversation. But today, we're chatting with Sheriff Waak, so let's get right to it. Sheriff, thank you so very much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, of course. Beautiful morning for a drive.
The colors are peaked, I think, right now. It was absolutely beautiful driving up here.
Snow, I thought, was maybe coming. I don't think much, but probably just enough. You know, that's a good question right there. I should say so, right?
Oh, go ahead.
That's a good question that I was just going to ask.
Okay.
Prefacing it.
Oh, are you? Well, go ahead, ask it.
How often do you check the weather when it comes to, even if it's just an inch? Is that something that you look at as a sheriff and go, well, that's just enough where the roads?
Well, Terry can attest to this. Those 1-inch snowfalls are the worst. People don't want to slow down for that, and that's when everybody goes in the ditch. So I worry more about those than a foot of snow, because a foot people know to stay in. Yeah. But I frequently check it. I have to call the county highway commissioner, and we usually communicate about 5 a.m. and discuss what we want to do, because there's potential to close some of the county offices.
Oh,
so they task myself and our county highway commissioner with that.
Sure. Well, and right now, or at least in the last couple of months, I think, there's been it seems like a high number of fatalities already. So with the snow coming now, that's hopefully everybody is safe, because it's just been some sad news out of Polk County recently.
Well, it has, and our community is suffering some great loss over there. We've had some really fine young people, unfortunately, taken from us. You know, we have a rural area with highway speeds, and unfortunately, we have a high number of fatalities. This one's really been tough because we've lost a lot of young people in the last month.
Yeah, I think it's 3 now. There was a double fatality where there's 2, I think, 16-year-olds, and then another situation I think was 17. So that obviously there isn't any kind of fatality that is a good fatality. But certainly from a community standpoint, and you being in Polk County, does that have a bigger effect because of their age?
It absolutely does, and that is the worst call anybody can get. Is it doesn't matter who it is. The fact is, any loss of life is really tough to endure. But when it's our young people, that hits us even harder. And it's really pulls our community together. You know, we're looking at, for example, the 2 young kids in Clayton that were taken from us. You watch all the surrounding schools get behind that school and rally, and that's really nice to see. The fierce competition on the court, but the minute that's over, everybody gets together and they feel each other's loss. So that's pretty special.
And what kind of impact does that have on you? You have to be the sheriff. You're the one that's organizing things, the one that's investigating things, the one that's in charge. You're getting all the information, yet you're still a human being.
Right.
What kind of impact does that have, if that is something you could speak to?
Well, it's tough. That is the tough part of the job, and there's no words you can say. There's nothing you can do that eases the pain of losing somebody like that. And, we get through it. When you go to a situation like that, you have a lot of tasks you have to do. So the job tasks kick in, but at the end of the day, that's one where you hug your kids a little bit tighter, and you're thankful for what you have, and then you feel just terrible for the loss that people are going through.
Yeah. Dad, when you were the sheriff, because you're sheriff in Washburn County for 28 years, were you the one that went out to the families and notified them of a loss of a loved one?
Years ago, we used to do that a lot. I mean, unfortunately, we had a lot of the deaths and fatalities in Washburn County, and that's the toughest part of the job. And I always tried to take somebody with me, either a chaplain or a female usually, to help out with the moms and dads when you have to break the bad news, because when you pull into a driveway at 2 a.m. or when it's dark and they see the squad car and they see 2 law enforcement standing there, they probably know what's already we're going to tell them, but it still is such a shock to these people. It's such a tragedy. I hated to do that, but it's part of the job and you have to do it. And it's just unfortunate. We lost a lot of them over the years, and that's too bad.
Yeah, it is sad. And, at the end of the day, those are some of the worst days, but yet there's a sense of, duty and honor to do that. And it is heartbreaking, but we use a chaplain as well, and that's been really good. We've We do debriefs afterwards. This is tough on firemen, paramedics, even the hospital staff that deals with this. This is really has a ripple effect in the whole community.
Sure. And obviously the family themselves, obviously our heart goes out to them, our prayers, our thoughts, and nobody's going through what they're going through. And I certainly understand that. But I do think that at times that sometimes we forget that all the other people that are involved in that process. And then it's the question of, where do they get help? Do they get help? I think when you were on here, I think it was about 6 months ago or earlier this year, you were here, and I think we may have touched on that a little bit about law enforcement. Specifically, we were discussing and the mental health there, the stresses, the pressures, the things that you see on a daily basis. Then you have to just turn it off and go home.
Absolutely. And we're not robots, we're people, and this is a job. And we can put on a front that we're doing well, but deep down there's issues when you see things like this. So we pay close attention to it. We utilize our chaplain. We have peer support through our county. We have an employee assistance program, and even on some of these last ones, our county mental health workers have reached out to us to say, hey, if anybody needs some extra time to come visit us or something, and there's no longer a stigma with that, nor should there be. The fact is, if you're struggling through something like that, you should seek some professional help.
Sure.
Do you find now with the social media and everything going on, do you find sometimes that they know what happened before we ever get to the door? And that's unfortunate, because those are not, that's not a way to find out that you just lost a loved one, is through social media. But it's unfortunate there are people out there that will get on Facebook immediately after they pass the accident and they recognize the vehicle, or that's the unfortunate part, is these poor folks are now on Facebook or on any kind of social media, and they're realizing that something's wrong or something big time is wrong. And then all of a sudden we show up, or law enforcement shows up at the door. That's got to be traumatic.
Well, it is. And, social media is a love-hate.
Yeah.
It can be great. It can be, if you're looking for a bad guy, that word of mouth getting out there is, in our connectivity of society is great.
Yeah.
But in a tragedy, when you want to be very guarded with sensitive information, it really is unfortunate. And I've noticed some of the Facebook sites, put disclaimers on there, though. We're understanding there's an accident, but please don't disclose information right now, because, we're still sorting it out. So we're getting there with it, but ultimately, and that's beyond our control.
That's right.
It's something that we have to deal with. You have to assume everything you do now, there's a potential that somebody is recording you, and it will be posted on social media, and you have to keep your professionalism at an all-time high.
Well, and that's actually one of the things on DrydenWire. We've always just kind of had this as our standard operating procedure, especially when it comes to fatality. We don't publish that unless law enforcement sends us the information. Or if they're not going to issue a press release, we call, and what do you want us to say? What can we say? We certainly don't want to either A, hurt an investigation, or B, share information that maybe you guys just don't want out yet for whatever reason. And I think for a lot of places there, or at least around here in terms of news outlets, I think that's just kind of the standard operating procedure. I know the Polk County scanner on Facebook, which is just strictly Facebook, I think, they will put a disclaimer in as well because they do a lot of, they hear an accident or something, and they'll post that. But then, like you said, they'll state, please do not put anything in there. And I know that we follow that stuff. Even if you put out a press release and there was a fatality and that you're not releasing the names at this time, we monitor that actually pretty closely to make sure, because usually you'll see who was it? And it's nope. So we kind of monitor that, making sure that nobody puts it on there. But I think for our area anyway, and maybe it's a little different in Polk County, the news out there, it seems to be that they all pretty much stick to that same formula of, we're not going to release it. Just because we know doesn't mean we're going to publish it. Do you find that to be true mostly in news outlets in Northwest Wisconsin?
Yeah, the way we do it when we have a fatality, we always release the basic facts of the accident, and we hold back on names just to give those families, you might have relatives out of state, and social media now instantly connects you to the world. So we always wait. Ultimately, people will try to get that out there. I mean, it's the talk of the town. Unfortunately, when it happens, it is the talk of the town.
Yeah.
I mean, we're small communities. When something like this happens, it affects everybody. So it's hard to control. It's a love-hate thing for social media. Yeah. The comments you get are probably the worst part sometimes. It's okay if you use it to get your message out, but it's those those little jabs here and there that can be frustrating, but I get it. Everybody's entitled to an opinion.
Yeah, even if there's wrong.
Yeah.
We're
We're never wrong, though.
Recently, you had, I don't know who put this video together, but it was exceptionally well done. I think we published it, it looks like in August 23rd, regarding Rose Marie Bly.
Right.
For those who don't know, what is this about?
Well, 10 years ago in August, we had a missing person case involving Rose Marie Bly, and she has not been seen or heard from since. So at the 10-year anniversary, we wanted to do something to get people talking about this case again in hopes to gather some tips. And so we, hired a company to help put the video together. And, it was I think we got good results. We're currently investigating tips. I can't go into what the tips are, but it has worked. We had people talking about the case, and I think that was our goal, is to get
Sure.
this back to the forefront, because 10 years is a long time, and we forget. We tend to move
Sure.
beyond. We look
Sure.
at the news story,
Yep.
and we really want people to be aware that this is a mystery in our county, and we want it solved. We have to solve it.
Well, we'll put this back on we'll refresh it back to our main page on our website after we're finished here, but it looks like, just FYI, going back to kind of that Facebook love-hate thing, looks like you've had over 120,000 views on that Facebook video.
Right. And again, that's with our data, we show about 160,000 views through our site alone. And
Wow.
that was the goal.
Yeah.
I mean, how else do you reach that many people? So
Yeah.
I think, like you say, love hate, you can really use it as a good resource and a tool.
Sure. So
did the National Center for Missing and Exploited help you with that, as far as the video and the age? What do they call that when you?
The age enhanced photo.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
We had somebody else work with us
Okay.
on the age enhanced photo, and then we contracted with somebody locally for the
Okay.
video production. And I have one of the investigators who does some narrating, has a background in media.
Nice.
So
Nice.
he was a great resource.
You should have him give us a call.
I don't want to lose them though. That's the
Yeah.
problem here. I gotta protect my employees. They're very
That's right.
valuable.
We can't afford to pay him anyway, so
Yeah.
I think you're safe. But for those who don't know the backstory, and I'm sure you can't get into some things, but just the actual backstory of Rose Marie Bly, what is that story?
Well, it's really a missing person, and she was supposed to go see a cousin by Cushing and was never seen from that point forward. Her car was located in Grantsburg, and she's vanished. So it's one of those people want to know.
Yeah.
And
How old
people
was she at the
deserve-
time?
20, I believe 21.
Okay. Wow.
And so, it's just one of those things where who likes an unsolved mystery? Nobody. We want to know the
Yeah.
answers. Her family's hurting. Her mom needs to know where her daughter is. I can't imagine living with that every day, that unknown.
Yeah, I'm not sure which is worse, actually, knowing if an individual has deceased. So getting that, as we were talking earlier, the police coming up at 2 a.m. and that your child has, passed away, or your child has disappeared. I don't know if one's better, or not, shouldn't say better, but which one has more of an impact. I don't know. I kind of almost feel like it's the not knowing. That's got to be, or at least it's a unique situation.
Right. And, Terry, you know this because you worked through all this, but there was the very high profile case in Minnesota of a missing boy. And that was a household name. That name was a household name. And that case was finally brought to closure a few years ago. And like I say, that family never stopped.
Mm.
And, that's the heartache of this when you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You can't move on. You can't move past it when you don't know.
Yeah. So what kind of, you've received some tips, and again, I'm sure you can't get into a whole lot, but has this been outside of just making sure people see what Rose might look like now, getting that name out there more, has any of this led to, these tips led to, I don't know what you would call it, is it progressed the investigation, I guess, or we're still looking into all of those tips?
Well, we're looking into the tips, and we're progressing as well. And, there's a lot of legwork to do. There's a lot of interviews to do, and we're getting some new information, and that's all we can ask for. And some information is good, some information is bad in a case. There's sometimes you get information that runs you 90 degrees this way and it ends at a dead end. But nevertheless, that's our job to look into this. And I'm happy that we've generated tips because after 10 years, those tips pretty much go away. So this reinvigorates the case. This gets people thinking about it. And I was excited about it. I think it's been a good opportunity for us.
Yep. And I had seen that you had done a press conference as well.
Yes.
What was that like? I mean, you've been sheriff now for 10 months. Is this your first time doing a press conference, or have you done them before?
That was probably my first one.
What was that experience like?
It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the tasks you take on as sheriff. Hollywood's not calling. Hollywood doesn't want me for any
any acting roles. No. Here are the facts. That's it.
Right. And I was excited to get them out. We're close enough to the metro that we get the big media outlets over there.
Right.
And so again, that grows that audience of people. Somebody over there may know something.
Yeah.
And so it's a good tool. And I thought it went really well. I will say I'm never 100% comfortable.
No.
I don't know if you ever get 100% comfortable in that role, but it's one of the things you do. So it was a good experience.
Sure. Well, I think the comfort would come in only if you already knew the questions. Right?
Right.
It's the unknown. And are they trying to trap me? Are they trying to bait me? Are they trying to, and it's okay. If you just ask me the regular questions, I'll answer those. But I think that's the part that probably makes people uncomfortable is I don't know what you're going to ask. And what are you really trying to get? Oh man, I shouldn't say, if I say this, then they may think I mean this. And it's, I think for me, there's no way I could do that.
Well, and it's tough in an investigation because, Terry, there's so few details you want to release.
Yeah.
But they want to know every detail. So, that is the challenge, and you'd hate to compromise a case. And so we got through it. I think it went really well. Yeah. I was pleased with it, and we'll see until the next one, I guess.
The tough ones is the woulda, shoulda, coulda, the speculation questions that I would never answer, because obviously when you start speculating, then that leads to more speculative questions coming from the news media. And all I really tried to do is and I'm sure you do the same thing. I got to make sure I don't spill the beans. We want to say anything we don't want, and I don't want to look stupid.
Well, that's always good. Don't look dumb.
You don't want to look dumb. So that was the first thing I always try to remember.
Yeah. So speaking of the fact you've been the sheriff now for 10 months, if you could go back right now, here's a real deep question for you, and tell Brent Waak this January 6th, one thing that Brent Waak October 11th knows now that you could tell the younger version of Brent Waak 10 months ago, before you took office, what would you have told yourself? What piece of advice would you have given?
Well, that is a tough question. I got into this, I didn't really know. I don't think you ever know what to expect as the sheriff. There's not a book that says, here's your manual on being sheriff. And we've had a crazy year. We had 3 tornadoes. We got involved in housing that notorious person that was involved in the disappearance of kidnapping Jamie Kloss.
Yeah.
We've had all these traffic fatalities. And I guess the advice is you just be prepared. Be prepared, because you never know from day to day what is going to happen.
Expect the unexpected would be good advice. That's
absolutely.
I kind of feel like that was a good answer.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a good answer, I guess, but I was hoping for, don't talk to this person.
Yeah.
First act, fire this person.
Let's talk about district attorneys now for a while, because obviously there's a lot of movement in district attorneys.
Well, the ADAs, I think, in Polk.
ADAs is really
Sure.
ADA. You're all square down there?
Well, I think it's no different than law enforcement right now. There is not a lot of candidates.
Yeah.
I think they struggle to find
they do
people, just like we struggle to find people right now. It's the environment we're in.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think we're set up. It's my understanding we're going to be hiring some.
Yeah, so ADAs, how many full-time ADAs did you get out of the last legislative budget?
They increased ours by 1.
Okay.
So, and again, it's a little out of my wheelhouse. I
Right.
Respect the office of the DA, and they're moving forward and trying to get full staff.
What I meant is filling the positions. I don't want to talk about the district attorney themselves or the ADAs, but you're right. they're running into the same problem law enforcement is, getting the qualified people to apply.
And you never would think that
Yeah.
we have a shortage of lawyers.
Yeah. Who would thought?
With every joke
Who
there
would
is
have
about
thought?
lawyers,
Yeah.
you never would think that. But no, you're absolutely right. And it's not just lawyers, but qualified lawyers. And the ones that maybe are qualified, they don't want to take an ADA position or a DA position for various reasons. But I think everyone is struggling in our area.
Yes, and if you look at, if you're increasing ADAs, it still all goes to the judge.
Yep.
Yeah.
How many
And
judges do you have?
We have 2 circuit judges.
Okay.
And, so if you increased by another ADA, you've
Yeah.
increased more things
Court
going
time.
to the judge and filling
Sure.
their calendar even
Mm.
tighter. So it's a really tough, I always say the DA's office is this funnel. This
Yeah.
funnel from all of our work goes right down into
Mm.
one office, and then they have to pick and choose and fight
Mhm.
their way through it. So
Mhm.
that's no easy task. And
No.
I get why in the legal world and the pay isn't where it should be for ADAs. It's just not.
Mhm.
So they're not going to entice a lot of the attorneys that.
That's right. They increased. Yeah, you're correct. They increased public defenders' salaries, though, did they not?
Mhm.
Was this last time around? But they didn't do anything with ADAs or district attorneys, correct?
I don't know on that, but I can
don't
tell you
think
that ADAs, their wages are not great.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Public defender, there's a shortage. I think that's the reason
Sure.
you got to pump that up a bit.
Yeah. And it's certainly not enticing people that don't live in our area to move here just for those. So you really just have to hope that there's someone from the area who left, got a law degree, and decide, oh, there's an opening there. Now this is a great opportunity to move back home. But that's with the pay that they have. That's really the biggest thing that would entice someone to take one of those jobs and to move here is if you grew up here.
So is the district attorneys full staff then down there now? They're full staff. They got their ADA.
Well, it's my understanding that.
Do you know of? I should say.
Well, I don't, and I can
All right.
and I can say I think one of our ADAs is going to help out with Burnett County.
Oh,
so
okay.
they may be full staffed, and then now one's going to
Sure. Yeah.
step up there
Everyone
and
has
help
to-
out.
Yep, help out.
And that is the spirit of the Northwoods up here. That's one thing I really do appreciate is how
Help each other.
all these counties help each other out.
Yeah.
you
It's a
got
good
to.
relationship.
And how's your staffing at the sheriff's office?
We're I'm knocking on wood right here, but
Mhm.
we're doing pretty well.
Oh, good.
We're getting very aggressive on hiring so that we don't get caught. We do a lot of recruiting for the jail. We're in the process of hiring a dispatcher, and our field services staff is full at this time.
Now, your dispatchers, are they dispatch jailers or are they specifically dispatch?
Specifically dispatch.
Sure.
Jill still run their shop down there?
Yes.
Yeah, she does a good job.
Yeah, I don't think anybody else knows who that is.
Well, it was a comment between Brett and I. Also, Rob Drew. You want?
Oh, Rob. Yeah, Rob's still there?
He's one of the hardest problems you got down there.
Rob's we're lucky to have both Rob and
Yeah,
Jill.
they stole him from me when they what they did.
Well, and it's got to that. We're
Yeah.
almost like it's like the
Yeah.
NFL draft
Yeah.
here. We gotta.
If I ever texted Rob or anything, I said I still call him the traitor. 'Cause he left me.
Well, and it's funny because we have hired some jail staff from other counties,
Yeah.
and that creates some phone calls. And I say, I'm not up there.
Thanks
You
a
know,
lot.
Yeah.
They called us.
Yeah.
We didn't
Yeah.
call
Yeah.
them.
Well, Dad, you can't talk. How many have you taken from the Shelley Police Department?
Well, a few. From all over.
All
you know.
over. Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
we stole a few here and there too, so it all comes out in the end.
Yeah, it's competitive.
It is.
When you find good people, you wanna get them
Yeah.
and keep them happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that I don't think is exclusive to law enforcement. That's true in any business or any organization. So what else is new? What else is going on in Polk County?
Well, we have the usual plagues, methamphetamine, and I actually went on National Public Radio, Wisconsin Public Radio, on September 30th,
No kidding.
and got to do a little 15-minute interview about methamphetamine in the Northwoods up here.
Good.
Mhm.
And we're always one of the counties that gets labeled as a high meth county.
That's what I hear. I
And
don't know if it's true, but that's what I hear.
Well, a lot of it is the geographic location. We're close to that Twin Cities. We're a border county.
Yeah.
And we hit it pretty aggressively. We go after it. We've added a canine. So when you add a canine, you are making more contacts, and those officers get out there and try to hit it and make a case every night. So then your numbers look, oh my gosh, they're off the charts. But we work hard to try to make meth cases, and we're also doing some things on the backside of this. We're getting active with our CJCC. We've added a jail programs position,
Mhm.
so that we can start to try to give people some roadmap when they get out of jail to not have to come back.
Mm.
And that's something we've never been able to do before, just with resources.
Mm.
So now we have someone dedicated in our jail to the programs, and then our CJCC is operational of the treatment court. They're looking at expanding to an OWI court, and there's talk. We're going to explore if there's a need, but possibly a veterans court. But
Okay,
that's,
so for those who don't know, an OWI court and a veterans court, I'm literally thinking there is a separate court just for this. I'm sure that's not it. What does that mean?
well, like for example, we run drug court, treatment court.
Mhm.
So if you qualify for that, it's an opportunity to go through a specialized program with oversight of the courts, and then it's a plan to get you on sobriety path. And
there's a carrot there, though. There's a carrot, though, right? You have to do this, and we're gonna reduce your
right.
So there's a carrot hanging out over them, so to make them to help themselves, I should say.
Right, and ours has been very successful. We're hoping that we continue. It's tough to always get people into it because you have to be nonviolent, and as we know with methamphetamine, that breeds violence. So we struggle sometimes to fill our treatment court up, but we work very hard. And if we can get people off this and back into normal society, it's a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Veterans Court, there's how many counties have? That's kind of
what is that?
Well, I know what it is, but I'm going to let
asking Brent what it is.
I'm going to let him explain it, but it's not that prevalent up here, is it?
Well, and that's what we have to explore if there is a need for it. And we've been approached to see if there is a need, so we're going to start collecting the data to see just how many inmates are veterans in our jail. And as you know, we talked about the stress on a person and soldiers with all these deployments, and they can have a lot of PTSD issues, and we want to make sure that some of that isn't the reason for the behavior we see.
So that's the idea behind Veterans Court?
The idea is to say that they're a special group of people, and sometimes they need a little bit special treatment.
Okay.
And if there's a need for it, we're going to look at it. And that's what's neat about CJCC. We use evidence-based practices. We try to have the data support if it's worthwhile or not.
Sure.
So, and we have access to a lot of good data in law enforcement. We're a number of people. We can collect numbers on a lot of things.
Last week we had Washburn County's newly appointed district attorney, Aaron Marco, and that was the first time I had heard about evidence-based. I'd never heard it, and it was interesting when he kind of went through that. So how long have you been using that model? Has it been since you've been there, and it was there kind of set in place before you were there, and you're continuing it, or is that something you're just recently starting to look at?
I think it's more recently looking at it. Our county went through a transition with CJCC, and that's it's interesting because it was a nonprofit group, and then this meth epidemic in our county motivated our county board to say we want to get aggressive on meth, and they took over by resolution to take on the CJCC and make it a county entity, and then they funded a couple positions to run it.
Nice.
And with that, that's where the evidence-based train of thought comes. So it's kind of new for us, and we're excited about it.
So that's incredible that the county board did that. So it sounds like your relationship with the county board is good.
Yes.
So I think that's something that a lot of people may not realize is the relationship between the sheriff and county board. Dad had a, not so super great one because Dad's dad, and then he's just the way he is. And just saying.
There you go.
Well, just whatever.
Yeah.
But it's important and it's vital to have those conversations. So it's going well with the county board in your 10 months?
Yes, and with any board, there's a lot of personalities. I respect what they do. I sat on the city council in St. Croix Falls prior to becoming sheriff, and so that gave me kind of an appreciation, I think, for what they do and what their role is. So I have a good working relationship. I don't think you'll ever agree on everything, and we have a lot of controversies in Polk County. There's the hog farm issue. There's trail use issues going on. And so a lot of that, as sheriff, I'm a peacekeeper. Okay. You guys do your thing. I think sometimes where the battles come with county boards is for budget issues and things like that. But we're doing well.
I saw a couple of the no hog farm signs out there in people's yards. So apparently it's a pretty hot issue.
Yeah. It's the talk of the North right now.
And for those who don't know, what is that?
It's the large kind of giant hog farms where they have over 1,000 animals.
And what's the issue that they're having? I think we've posted a few things on this, or they were submitted, but I really didn't read them all the way through to understand it. So what are the both sides? What's the issues?
Well, I think you have people that are against it because of environmental concerns.
So they don't want those hog farms. They're just too big. Is that what they're saying? That we need to have a cap on how many you can have?
You don't want to be downwind either. That's probably one of the biggest concerns right there. They don't want to.
I really don't think so, actually.
Yeah, I do.
Well, there are people on both sides of the issue. There are people that say it's already regulated, and then there are people that say we don't want this in our backyard. That I moved to the North Woods to not have a giant hog farm next to me. So again, I'm the sheriff.
Yeah, right.
I get to skirt that issue and say I'm a peacekeeper.
Right. Yeah. I mean, does this have any impact at all on the sheriff's office? Like phone calls in reporting something? Does this have any impact on the sheriff's office specifically?
It really doesn't.
Okay.
There's a lot of interest now at county board meetings. And
can imagine.
The next one is going to be held at Unity School Tuesday, because there is usually a lot of turnout now. And, it's most of the time people really don't care a whole lot about what's going on in their community until there's a hot button issue. And this is obviously a hot button issue for people. So that brings a lot of people in. Some of the other issues we have is we always have the ATV, snowmobile versus quiet sports and trail issues. And there's only so many trails and people have to kind of fight over them. And again, as sheriff, don't really have to get involved in that. We're peacekeepers.
Sure. Quiet sports?
Walking,
cross-country
hiking, skiing.
Walking isn't a sport, is it?
Well, it's an activity. It's an activity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Horse riding, that's another one.
Horse riding, yes, and they are kind of a group
trails.
that sometimes they get scorned on too for being horse people, and they're not wanted on certain trails.
Huh.
So
are they allowed on ATV trails?
On certain ones, we have some multi-use trails, and that really is the trend, is to try to get multi-use trails. But that in itself creates problems because, sometimes people don't want to share the.
Yeah.
So it just creates some conflict.
Conflict's good sometimes.
No, I don't know.
What else is new?
Well, we're just getting by. We're doing budget right now.
How's that going?
Well, it's we're getting there. There isn't a money tree. There isn't a pot of gold.
Yeah.
You can only do so much, and personnel is your largest cost. So, we do with it the best we can.
Are you held to 0% increase?
Well, again, that's a different way. We see that isn't always the truthful way of looking at the budget.
No.
So we don't do it that way. We budget for what we need. We're trying to get where, in the past, we've never budgeted for the future to say, well, we know in 5 years these radios are going to be junk, so let's start planning for that. We have a lot of things that are going to end of life, and that's concerning. We have computer systems that after the first year will be unsupported and subject to, hacking and everything else. So those are a crisis situation we have to make sure we're on top of. But we want to look further down the road to say we need a capital plan to replace this stuff, and we've never really done that.
So it's been more reactive or just right now, present, instead of proactive and looking at the future. We need to start planning for those things.
Well, the reason I said 0, there are some county boards that prior to you working on your budgets, they require you to remain 0%. And that's what I was referring to. Not so much can you stay at 0, but some county boards say, okay, all departments, you have to be coming 0, the same as the 2019 budget, you got to come in 2020 at 0%. And if you go over, then you're going to have a lot of justifications and meetings and hearings and how you're going to fund it.
Right.
That's what I was talking about.
Sure. And the problem with that is just the wages in itself.
Yeah.
It's impossible to do that.
Well, they eliminate the personnel part of it. They take that out of the equation, but everything else has to remain 0.
Right. And when we look at our budget, you don't have a lot to work with because personnel is the majority of your costs. So, we have a few things we need. We're working hard to get those things, and generally it's going well.
What are those things, by the way? The
needs. Technology is so expensive, and it's always a challenge, and we need some radio upgrades. We need some patrol rifles, some of those things. I have a patrol rifle. I was issued it in 1998, and it's still, it's been in the trunk of the car in minus 30 and 130 degrees.
Right. So I don't know anything about guns.
Is
so
that like a flintlock? Is it the flintlock one that you?
Yeah.
Those were the ones you had, Terry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's still a muzzle loader. It's
Yeah.
about time for an upgrade.
Yeah.
So guns just go bad just from sitting?
Well, it's a system that, we train with them a lot, and they've had a lot of rounds through them. And again, they're getting to what I would deem end of life.
And what actually, just out of curiosity, how do you know when your gun is coming to an end of life? Is it just not shooting straight? That's the only thing I can think of.
Well, we start seeing some
Or do you just
failures.
blame it on that? Yep,
Well-
time for new guns. I'm not hitting the target anymore.
Well, we see in
Anyway.
training some of them start to fail.
Yeah.
And you can replace some parts on them, but ultimately when you look at having that rifle for over 20 years exposed to the environmental conditions, I mean, these are not oiled down and kept in a gun safe like our personal guns usually are. I mean, I look at my deer rifle, that thing gets oiled down after I use it and put in the gun safe, and you bring it out a year later. No, these are banging around in the cars. We've had a few rifles that have even been in traffic crashes, because the squad's had a crash.
Oh,
and
right.
so ultimately it's a tool, and it's no different than your police radio. It's no different than the other tools you have. They don't last forever. So
Deterioration in the 30 below, and then all of a sudden you got 120 in the summer, and your car sets for 3 days off or whatever when you're off duty. And if you don't take them and remove them from the squad, that's hard on any piece of metal.
it is, absolutely.
See, I just wouldn't think it would be.
But that's just one thing. We have things that need replacing.
Yeah.
It's things don't last forever, and that's what we're trying to get beyond. Is that get past that mentality that we bought it once.
Yeah.
No, this is going to need replacement in 10 years. This is going to need replacement in 5, and to have a plan. That's kind of the goal.
Okay.
How's the jail population doing? Are you still housing for other folks?
We are. Our population's a little down right now. And
That's good.
And yeah, you think, well, that's good, but we could take on some more inmates, and we do make some revenue off that. So
sure.
that's a benefit. I said this before. We're very fortunate. The people that built our justice center had a forward thinking
That
and
was
planned
smart. That was
planned for
smart.
the future. So I can't complain as sheriff.
Yeah.
I handle. I was handed a pretty well
Yeah.
smooth sailing ship.
Yeah. Whatever. Where is Pete? Pete Johnson. I know that he went to the, I think, Dad, would you call it the dark side?
Yeah, I think he
something.
did.
Went-
Yeah,
Went over to
He's a lawyer.
A lawyer now. If you do hear from him, do you seek counsel from him? Have you guys talked since you've been the sheriff?
Well, I see Pete from time to time. We live in a small community,
Oh,
and,
sure.
and it's always nice to see him. And I just hosted in August a retiree shoot where we have all the retirees come in and qualify with their handguns, and that entitles them to, carry concealed guns. So it's good to see all the retirees.
And it's probably good for just a good laugh.
Well,
See how bad their eyes have gotten.
Pete's doing really well. He's fun to talk with.
Sure.
So yeah, it's fun to do that retiree shoot. That was my first time getting together with that group of guys and girls, and it's just fun to see them.
So when it comes to stuff that's fun, because I think we started at the very beginning of this talking about some fatalities and the impacts that has. What do you do to kind of punch out? And because as a sheriff, you don't really get to punch out, but you need a mental break. You need to be able to get away from something. What is it you do? What hobbies? What is your your go-to thing?
Well, I'm one of these hobby guys, and I'm lucky because I have a lot of hobbies.
Oh, nice.
But I'm an outdoors person, and I love, getting outside.
I tried that once. I didn't like it. I like the indoors.
No, I spend a lot of time in the woods if I get a chance, and I'm a busy guy with my family.
Sure.
We are still playing baseball. We go on Sundays over to Minnesota and play fall ball
Oh,
with my one son. So, I do a lot of family things, and I guess I'm lucky. I don't have to come home to that quiet room and just sit there and think about things. I live in a house with chaos. I have 3 boys.
oh,
Okay, and 2 are in high school and 1 is in elementary school. So, I mean, I'm busy. My wife and I, there's not too many times you just come home and sit and get to stare at the walls. There's always something
That's probably
to
a
do.
good thing.
yeah.
though,
I
too.
think it might be.
Yeah.
It is. But like I say, for me to go out and do a little grouse hunting or some duck hunting, I love that. That really recharges me.
Sure. So for coming up on the winter now, or technically I suppose fall, but to kind of wrap up your first year as sheriff, are there anything that kind of set out to do or had some ideas in the first month or 2 months when you took sheriff earlier this year or when you were elected that you were kind of looking to see if you could get accomplished before your end of your first year? Is there anything that is still kind of out there on the plate that you want to kind of wrap up in the next few months?
There's a few things. I had a plan. I wanted to do quite a few things this first year, and some of it was replacing some of the equipment and working with our staff to get some training opportunities. And again, as sheriff, it's easy to out-conference yourself. You could go to a conference every week if you wanted to as sheriff. So I've tried not to do that. I've tried to be around and be involved. And it's a lot of day-to-day. Still, I'm still learning this job. I mean, 10 months is nothing, and then we've had a busy 10 months. So there's always things we can do and always things we're working on. But I'm happy with how things have went so far. And hopefully we continue to go that direction.
Okay. Is there anything else that you wanted to kind of touch on that maybe we did get an opportunity to?
Well, we could talk about mental health. That's another issue.
Good. Excellent.
That is another issue
real popular right now.
Well, and it always has been. In one of my frustrations is just the lack of local beds for people in crisis, and that is a constant battle. We had some money earmarked to come up to this area, and the governor cut it out, and that's frustrating.
Well, I don't think he cut it out. I think he...
Well, the first time he did.
Oh, right.
First time he vetoed it.
Yep, and then apparently gave that to Mendota.
Somewhere down south.
Yeah. But my point is, this is a need for our communities, and we can't ignore it. We have to come up with solutions, and I'm a big advocate for that. I mean, right now we're going through a season change. Terry, you can remember these days.
Yep.
Change of the seasons is really tough on people.
Yeah.
People go through the blues, and there's a lot of mental health cases.
Suicidals.
Yes.
A lot of those, especially around the holidays. And this
right, but the change of the seasons, I've never heard that before.
It really is. Change of the season is tough on people. I think they just, it's another milestone, and sometimes that's hard to deal with a milestone.
So
like
typically that you're just talking probably spring and fall, right? Not probably a fall to winter or a spring to summer.
I personally think the worst is that winter to spring. That's a tough.
Really, that would
April
be.
is a tough. April is a tough mental health month. We've had some really bad issues.
Why do you think?
Again, if I was a doctor, I would be on an island celebrating somewhere, all the money I have. But as a cop, I don't know. But I can say that my theory on it is just people endure that hard winter and they think, well, when spring gets here, everything's going to be better. And then spring gets here and it's not. And it's a reality that things aren't going well, and they start feeling down and depressed. And then you have Easter right around that time, and holidays are one of the catalysts that are tough for mental health. So I'm no expert. I just see a lot of it. I've had experience, and April's always been a tough mental health month. But all the changing of the seasons create that.
That's interesting.
And I will say we have great local resources for people to have follow-up appointments and do all the get medicated and get their life back. And it's that when they're in crisis, when they want to harm themselves, that's where we struggle. All too often we have to go to Winnebago, which is a 5-hour one-way trip. And I feel like we're taking our citizens and putting them out on an island, and that's not helping them. That's
5 hours, 6 hours in a squad car in the back seat is not helping your mental health people.
And plus, I think maybe just knowing that you're so far away from most likely people that you know or loved ones in your area.
Well, what happened to this last thing they were talking about? There was a bill, was the Republicans put forward that they were talking about increasing the beds in Eau Claire and not spending the money for a closer facility for us up here, for instance, which would be very expensive because you don't have the doctors. But down in Eau Claire, weren't they talking about increasing the bed space?
Well, that was in the budget that was passed to add 22 beds,
Correct.
I believe. And then that was vetoed.
So but then there was another move.
Yeah, there's an effort out there to get it going.
Okay.
But, the wheels of this turn slowly.
Oh, absolutely.
And in the meantime, we're still in that holding pattern, scratching our heads. Where do we take these people? And I think in the last quarter, we had 5 that we had to take to Winnebago. Yeah. And another agency had 4 in our county. And that's too many. If we have to take one that far away, we've failed. And it's especially hard for me because 45 minutes away, I have big-time hospitals in Minneapolis.
But you can't cross over.
No. So
and that's ridiculous.
It really creates a frustration for law enforcement, and we're going to continue to cry and whine about it because we want our citizens to have that resource to help them.
Have you talked to your area legislators about this?
I have.
And has it been received well?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Everybody knows what the problem
Yeah,
is.
because this is not a Republican. It's not a Democrat thing. When bills get passed, or if they don't, or if they shift money, maybe in Madison that might be. You'd like to think not, but locally, there's no way this can be a partisan thing.
No, people want to fix this. It's just it's tough to fix. It's like anything. It takes money.
A lot of money.
Yeah,
and it takes dedicated people in the mental health world to. I think there's even a little bit of a shortage, like in law enforcement. There's likely a shortage of mental health professionals.
Mm. Well, I think also there could be an issue of explaining it to average Joe and Jane. In your profession, of course, it's a duh. Legislators, duh. A lot of people that are involved in the system, it's very obvious to them. But I think maybe it's not getting explained very well to just your average citizen who works at your local farm or your holiday station. Going, one, I don't care about this stuff. Why would I want to know? Maybe we're just not really doing a good enough job to kind of lay it all out. This is what this is about, and this is how it impacts you.
Right, and I can go back when I was in the police academy in 1994, okay? And they talked about this Chapter 51, and I said, wow,
what is that?
What is that? How often can that happen? I mean, that's once in a career. And ultimately, it's every week. And we have just about every day, we get welfare checks and people that are potentially threatening to harm themselves. And they're dangerous calls, and they're stressful. And then ultimately, when you get one, this could be a 12-hour, 14-hour deal, and that just drains your resources. So, but ultimately, what bothers me most about it is I think we're letting our citizens down. We know that this is a problem. We got to find help for them.
But you talked about the 5-hour time. That doesn't include the time that they have to be at the emergency room, a local emergency room, to be medically cleared for the facility to accept them. And we find, at least around here, in my history, is it took forever at a local hospital to get the mental health person that is going to be moved to Mendota or Eau Claire. It takes hours sometimes at the local hospital to get them cleared to go.
It does. And they run a lot of tests on the people. Mm-hmm. And again, Terry, somebody who's in crisis, they're not they're not yes people.
Right.
They're struggling. And so they want these really stable, nice people before they go to that facility. And that's just not the case.
We've had them do CT scans.
Yeah.
We asked then Brad Schimmel, the AG, many years ago, that if he would try to help us, the law enforcement, to work with the medical community, come up with a standardized mental health clearance, if you were to call it that, clearance to get it. So everybody does the same. But you go to different hospitals, they all do something different. And it could take hours and hours. And we have cops, sometimes 2 cops sitting there for 3 or 4 hours in an emergency room before we can even get them in a squad car.
Right.
That is not helping these people.
No, that's the thing. You have somebody who's experiencing probably the worst day of their life. And then now we play this little game where, hey, we're going to take you to this hospital. You're going to sit here 2 and 3 hours. And then who knows where we're going to end up going. It can be Ashland. It can be La Crosse. It can be Eau Claire. And the final place, when everything else fails, is Winnebago. And like I say, now you have a deputy that has a 10-hour round trip. So if he's at the end of this shift and he catches this, I mean, we've had to have him go over there and get a hotel room after they've dropped off the person and then sleep because we didn't feel it was safe for them to even drive back. They've been working, 18 hours straight. Wow. So it's a problem. The state knows it's a problem, and I really wish we could get a quick fix for this.
I do understand, though, too, the hospitals have a certain amount of responsibility when they have a patient, too. I get that. They have a certain protocol they have to follow. Right. If the guy says, I fell down and hit my head, okay, now we got to look at that. I get that, but there's got to be a way to streamline this process because we're not helping the poor soul that's sitting there in a chair in a waiting room for somebody to do a test on.
Well, right, and we're letting these people down. That's what bothers me. When I started, of course, Cumberland was a place that we frequently went.
We always went to Cumberland.
And as a young officer, I was like, oh, I have to drive 45 minutes to Cumberland. I would love to only have to drive 45 minutes to Cumberland now.
I remember those days when I did. Well, it was a quick zip, Shell Lake to Cumberland. We were out of there in no time, But that's not going to happen. And then they close, and then Eau Claire gets full all the time.
Right.
And then you're going to La Crosse, or you're going to Mendota, or you're going to Winnebago.
Mendota stopped taking people.
Yeah, they stopped taking those.
It's Winnebago.
Yeah,
I didn't know Mendota stopped taking people.
Right.
Yeah, they have their beds are filled with the people that are sentenced there, and it takes sometimes a year to get them in there. We'll hold them in a county jail for 9 to 12 months.
How often do you have people that were go to Eau Claire, that you can get someone in Eau Claire?
That's typically our best case scenario now. I want to back up. Actually,
okay.
I am fortunate. We have Amory Behavioral Health now in the city of Amory.
Correct.
Okay.
And they have 10 beds, but they're usually full. Because again, there is a demand for this. This is
Sure.
You don't have to look far to see someone who's affected by mental health. There's a lot of families that have this. It's not abnormal. I mean, we see a lot of mental health issues. So I'm lucky. Amory once in a while has an opening, and then it's
the next closest is
it's celebration time. But Eau Claire would be the next closest.
And then so I know you. I'm not going to hold you to this number, but out of 10, how many out of 10 typically would you be able to say can go to Amory?
Maybe 2.
And then Eau Claire, of those remaining 8. So after you 3 more, maybe?
I would say it's a split. About half the time we have to go to Winnebago.
Okay.
Half the time there's a closer placement.
Okay.
And it's just a source of frustration.
Sure. Well, and I think the other component is that this isn't just, Amory obviously is in Polk County, but Burnett's also trying to get people into Eau Claire. Washburn is trying to get people in Eau Claire. Rusk, Sawyer is trying to get people in Eau Claire. So even if you just look at Polk County specifically, let's say it is 40% or so, you end up taking to Winnebago. That's probably going to be the same number, if not higher, because a lot of people don't have an Amory, for example. You're going to have that same number, if not higher, in all the other counties. And being just kind of this Northwest Wisconsin, one big community, that is a lot of resources. And also, like Dad, you were talking about the individual that's actually being a part of this.
Right. That's who I think we're really letting down.
Absolutely.
And, here's one thing that has changed from the start of my career until now, is there's a lot of local resources that can avoid an inpatient bed, that we can say we'll set up a safety plan. We'll have somebody stay with the person. We'll ensure they don't have access to weapons. We'll get them to a family friend house, whatever, where they feel safe, and there's somebody with them that can call us again if there's a problem. So that was never done before. As you know, Terry, back in the day, if someone even mentioned hurting themselves, we just took them right to Cumberland.
Zip.
You were there. And we're learning now a lot of that could have been avoided. And so for someone to actually have to go now to Winnebago or to Eau Claire, it's a legitimate case. They've been evaluated by a crisis worker. They have been, every option has been exhausted, and the only way to keep that person safe is to put them in an inpatient bed. In the past, we took everybody to an inpatient bed. So we do a much better job now of screening and getting the ones that really just are absolutely in need of it. Mm-hmm. And we have great workers locally that come out and do these evaluations. And that's time consuming, but I don't so much worry about that. It's about helping these people. It's about getting them care. So if we can get the care they need locally, that's great. But ultimately, there's a few people that they have to go. They're in that much of a crisis, and those are the ones that we're letting down.
Mm. Well, we have high hopes. We really do. We hope that this is going to get addressed. And like you were saying, everybody knows this already. In terms of legislators, they realize there's the issue. Now it's just how do we get that done?
Right. And I'm confident. I think, people are working towards this goal and getting it out there and talking about this and letting the average person know that this is a problem.
Yeah.
That puts pressure on the legislators too.
Well, that's good sometimes, I think.
Well, sometimes squeaky wheel, gets the grease,
absolutely.
You keep hollering, sooner or later something's going to happen.
Well, Sheriff, thank you so much for taking the time to come on over. Plans this weekend?
Well, we
Going
are.
hunting.
Well, I'll try a little bit, but we have a fundraiser for Deputy Mike Severson Scholarship,
Oh, crap.
and it's a banquet. It's a banquet thing, a fundraiser banquet. I'm going to attend that. The Milltown Fire Department has their taco feed, and tacos is my favorite food is tacos.
What?
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone say that before.
Yeah, in fact, my family laughs because if it's a birthday and they'll say, "What do you want for your birthday meal?" Tacos. So Milltown Fire's having their taco feed Saturday, so
You'll be in heaven
I am
then, won't you?
definitely going to the taco feed. And then, of course, baseball again on Sunday. So weather permitting, I mean, who knows? We might be having a foot of snow or we might be having rain. It's hard to say. But my weekends are always busy. I don't have a lot of downtime.
Good. And plus calls to places if there's things that are happening. You kind of throw that in there and you never really know when that's going to happen. But
yeah, I was going to ask Terry, how did that work before you had cell phones for being a sheriff? You must have not ever wanted to be away from a phone.
There's a pager.
Pager. Yeah, we used pagers back in those days. Yeah.
Yeah, usually almost every Sunday at church.
Beep, beep, beep.
Pastor Gorman is talking, all of a sudden it goes off and Dad gets up and leaves, and then usually we all have to get up and leave because
it's your ride home.
It's our ride home. I don't know how many sermons we missed because Dad got paged and we all had to leave.
Yeah, that was the pager. Pagers were in then, but then that kind of went away. Cell phones are the it.
Yeah.
Oh, right. And
the trouble with
so
that
nice.
is the trouble with it, reason I hated cell phones, you never get away.
Yeah,
right.
You never get away. When I'm on vacation, they were calling me. Out in Arizona, I got a phone call because there's something happened at the office.
Yeah.
So it's part of the job. We knew that going in, didn't we?
I did.
And
that's the unique part of it. But you think back 50 years ago, if you're the sheriff, I mean, you would have never wanted to leave a landline. You would feel like you're under house arrest.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So, I mean, I'm lucky I have a cell phone. I can go do a lot of things. If they need me, they'll call me. And I'm never that far away. So
there is some benefit to that, having the cell phone.
Yeah, think about that. I mean, I'm in my 40s, and I can't remember, growing up, we didn't have cell phones either.
Right.
So I was the other day, I was trying to think back that how did I get a hold of my friends? Like when I go somewhere and they're not there, what did I do? I don't remember. Did I just wait?
We're so connected now. It's so people can't grasp what that's like.
Like I grew up without them, and so did you guys, and I can't remember what it was actually like.
You went over to their house and had a personal conversation.
Yeah. Well,
Where were you?
We used to drive around in squad cars looking for payphones to call 911.
I remember
to call dispatch.
Payphones. Well, you don't see payphones anymore.
And that's a thing of the past. People say a payphone. What is that?
Well, and the computers in the car now, you never have to use a radio hardly anymore. I mean, it's good that you have them. You got to use them, but with those computers, you talk back and forth with the next deputy 3 counties over.
No need for a notepad and pen in there writing down all these details, and it's all right in front of you.
All you do is you click on the thing and you see everything that's going on. The dispatcher talk to them. It's absolutely saves a lot. It's a very safety factor. It's provides for officer safety and speed, and saves on the airtime, which the social media people listen to all the time, and sometimes you don't want them to know it.
Right, and it also costs a lot of money.
Oh.
That's the trouble. Technology is great, but it's so expensive.
Yeah, before you just had to budget like some quarters for the payphone, and
no, we would just dial 911. That was free.
Well, we only gave them no. It's January 1st. We gave them a roll of quarters, so we got to last you all year.
Simpler time.
That it was.
I loved it.
Well, thank you again, Brent. Look forward to hopefully in the spring having you back again and kind of giving the update on things. And ideally, hopefully, we'll be talking about some options that are being discussed for some mental health, either facilities or some more funding in our area, because that's something that we definitely are kind of keeping our eye on.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so very much.
Thanks,
and thanks everyone for listening. And make sure you join us next week as we will welcome Sawyer County Judge John Yackel to our studio for an extended conversation. Until then, be safe, make good choices, and have a blessed day.